You know, in history, there are these moments that really just stop you in your tracks. Moments of what seems like a terrible tragedy, but are somehow declared a triumph. Today, we're going to explore one of the most powerful examples of this, the martyrdom of Imam Ali.
By the Lord of the Kaaba, I am successful. Now get this. These were the words Imam Ali said at the very moment an assassin's sword struck him. Not a cry of pain, not a word of anger, but a declaration of success, of victory.
It's a huge paradox, right? A fatal attack, and he calls it the ultimate achievement. And that question, well, that's the heart of what we're talking about today. To find the answer, we have to go back to that fateful morning. So, let's set the scene. It's the year 40 after Hijrah. We're in the holy month of Ramadan on the 19th day. And we're in the great mosque of Kufa, the capital of the Caliphate, in that quiet pre-dawn darkness. As he always did, Imam Ali got to the mosque early to give the call to prayer himself. The worshippers start to line up behind him. And then, as he goes into prostration, that moment of total submission to God, an attacker lunges from the shadows and strikes him on the head with a sword laced with a deadly poison. But here's the thing you have to understand. This was not some random act of violence. Not at all. It was actually a carefully coordinated plot by a group known as the Kharijates. See, they were bitter after a defeat and had hatched a plan to assassinate the three most powerful leaders at the time: Imam Ali in Kufa, Muawiyah in Damascus, and Amr ibn al-As in Egypt, all on the very same day.
This was meticulously planned. The assassin, a man named Rahman ibn Muljam, he just blended in with the other worshippers, waiting for that one single moment of vulnerability during the prayer to strike. In an instant, the sacred space of peace and worship was turned into a scene of absolute tragedy.
Now, in the middle of all that chaos, Imam Ali's first thought wasn't even for himself. It was for the prayer. He told his son, Imam Hassan, to step forward and lead everyone in finishing it. But it's what happens right after that that just reveals everything about his character. So the assassin tried to make a run for it, but he was caught almost immediately by the other worshippers. And they bring him, bound and trembling for fear, right in front of the man he had just mortally wounded. And this is where you see this just incredible contrast. Imam Ali sees the ropes digging into his attacker's skin, and his first command is, loosen his bonds. Then, when a drink is brought for him, he sees the terror in his assassin's eyes and says, no, give it to him first. I mean, this is so much more than just mercy. It's this profound ability to see the humanity even in your worst enemy. And when it came to the question of justice, his instructions were crystal clear. He laid out the law of retribution. One strike for one strike, no more. And then he strictly forbids them from mutilating the body, which was a common practice back then, calling it a grave sin. So even as he's facing death, his standard is absolute justice, but always, always tempered with compassion. Imam Ali lived for 2 more days as the poison worked its way through his body. And he used that incredibly precious time, not for anger or for despair, but to leave behind a final set of instructions, a timeless will for his family and all his followers. You see, his final will wasn't about power or money. It was a blueprint for how to live, for how to build a just society. And it's just as relevant today as it was 1400 years ago. Speak up for the oppressed against the oppressor. Take care of the most vulnerable people in your society. Build unity. These are the things he didn't just talk about. He lived and died for them. And despite the immense pain he must have been in, the people around him said his lips were constantly moving in the remembrance of God. His focus was always outward, on his community, on his family, right until the very end. And then, as the dawn broke on the 21st of Ramadan, the inevitable moment arrived. The world was about to lose the man they called Asadullah, the Lion of God. Surrounded by his loved ones, Imam Ali's soul departed. The accounts say that right before he passed, a smile came across his face, as if he was greeting old friends. He told them that the Prophet Muhammad and his wife, Fatima, had come to welcome him. Following his instructions, his sons prepared his body for burial. They carried him out of the city in the dead of night and buried him at a secret location, which we now know as Najaf in Iraq. This was absolutely necessary, because he knew his enemies wouldn't think twice about desecrating his grave if they ever found it. It's so hard to capture a person like Imam Ali in just a few words, but this quote does a pretty amazing job. He wasn't just a warrior or a ruler. He was a scholar, a philosopher, a spiritual guide. His courage on the battlefield was famous, but it was matched only by his compassion for the weakest in society.
And that brings us right back to our original question. By the Lord of the Kaaba, I am successful. Why would he say that? Well, because in the Islamic tradition, martyrdom, or shahada, is not a defeat. It's the ultimate victory. It's the moment when a life lived for God culminates in the ultimate sacrifice. It's not seen as an ending, but as the final step in a spiritual journey, a transition to eternal life with God. It's the ultimate success. His work was done. He was finally going home.
The story of Imam Ali's final days isn't just a piece of history. It's a profound lesson in integrity, in mercy, and in justice. And it makes us ask ourselves, in a world that's still full of so much conflict and hate, what can we learn from a leader who offered a drink to his own assassin? Definitely something to think about.